Alarm bells should be ringing at the White House this morning, if they've seen the brand new CNN polls, that is, on President Biden. We can't sugarcoat it. They are tough. Mr. Biden's approval rating is at 39%. That's extremely low. As far as the economy is concerned, nearly 60% of voters think the president's actions are making things worse. And here's one more bitter pill. Even Democrats don't really want Mr. Biden as a candidate. Almost 70% of Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters would support somebody else, anybody else, as the Democratic nominee. Voter fatigue is certainly present. So is President Biden a liability for the Democratic Party? Let's bring in CNN political director David Chalian to break down all of the numbers. I mean, it's really depressing, isn't it, for the White House to see these numbers when even their own party don't support their candidate?
Yes, no doubt the White House is banking on the fact that when he's up against a Republican, those Democrats will come home. But you are right, Max. There's very little good news here for Joe Biden in the White House. He is in a tough spot for re-election, and it's not just the economic concerns that you cited. There's also real concern about his age. So we asked among Democrats and Democratic leaners, open-ended question, what's your biggest concern about Biden as a candidate? 49% said his age, 7% mental sharpness, 7% health, all sort of interrelated there. Also, we asked more broadly beyond Democrats to Americans overall if there are serious concerns that his age might negatively affect his ability to serve as president. Look at that. Nearly 3/4 of Americans say, yes, that's a serious concern. Serious concerns about his mental competency and about understanding the next generation's concerns.
You mentioned how this, might change later on when it comes to the actual general election. So how do you think this means he matches up against his potential Republican opponents?
So we're 14 months away from the actual election, but this is CNN's first look at these potential general election matchups. And he is in a real sort of margin of error race. We matched him up against a whole slew of potential Republican candidates. And you see there only Nikki Haley, the former ambassador to the United Nations, is outside the margin of error with a lead of 6 percentage points, 49 to 43 over Biden. He's in a near dead heat race with Trump, with DeSantis, within a couple of points of Pence and Vivek Ramaswamy. These are all within the margin of error with no clear leader. So it shows what a battle he has ahead of him, including the enthusiasm factor. We asked people, are you extremely motivated to vote in next year's election? And what you see right there in that top line where it says now, 61% of Democrats describe themselves as extremely motivated. 71% of Republicans do. That's a deficit that the Biden campaign is going to need to make up in the months ahead.
A lot of people tell me outside the country, David, that they can't believe there isn't an alternative candidate to Joe Biden. And that's even more salient, isn't it, when you find out from this poll that many Democrats don't support Joe Biden. Just explain why there isn't any sort of succession plan here.
Yeah, there are a couple of Democrats running, Marianne Williamson, Robert Kennedy Jr., but they're not galvanizing support among Democrats, and they're not a real threat to Biden getting the nomination, Max. And there is a real difficulty in taking on an incumbent president. It also, as we've seen in the past with Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, it weakens the incumbent president and perhaps puts them in a tougher position. Let's say Donald Trump's the nominee to actually defeat Donald Trump next year. So that's why no major Democrat is sort of stepping forward to take Biden on, because it may not be successful and it may ultimately weaken and harm Democrats' chances at maintaining the Oval Office.
David Chalian, appreciate your insight as ever. Thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you.
David mentioned, the gap between President Biden and the Republican field of candidates is very narrow. Our CNN poll says that if it came to a race between Joe Biden and former Republican Vice President Mike Pence, Pence leads 46 to 44%, though that's within the margin of error. It's a different ball game in the race for the Republican presidential nomination. Here's what Pence had to say about this morning's Biden poll just moments ago.
Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. The American people are done with the failed policies of President Joe Biden. And now I think Republican primary voters, and frankly, many independents and many Democrats around the country are looking for that leader and looking for that agenda that will really restore our economy and ensure our national security in generations to come.